So we've got one saying super hot, super demand, and then we've got others saying, hey, we are seeing some slowdown in November and December from the new home sales market, and buyers are getting discouraged because there isn't enough property, because it's tough to find the property they want. So the question is this: how do most agents find the secrets to succeed in today's competitive real estate market, especially when the top agents are keeping those secrets to themselves? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Hi, I'm Aaron Amuchastegui, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. Real Estate Rockstars, welcome back. This is Aaron Amuchastegui, and today we are doing State of the Market. Let's see, number 64. I get to bring back one of my guests that was on. So she was episode 904, episode 904, Kelly Skeval from Ithaca, New York. Kelly, thanks for coming to talk to me today.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for having me.
You know, Kelly and I, we check in a lot online. We get to kind of follow each other with what each other's doing and getting to see like different investments that she's working on and different tips. So I reached out to ask her if she'd come on again and just talk news with me. And now we're here. So it's end of 2020. Do you feel like 2020 was a fast year or a slow year?
I feel like both, right? I feel like at times it was flying by and at other times it was like the longest. I feel like the summer was like the longest. I feel like both. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think it's weird because at the beginning you think that it's going by. I think it went by fast. Right now it feels like the year went by fast, but when you're doing like the same thing every day, right? Like when we were on lockdown and there was no variation from day to day, the day felt like, oh my gosh, it's just going by. But like then the memory, they like links them all together into one day, and it's like, oh, that's first 6 weeks of lockdown went pretty fast. Yeah, that was easy. Yeah. Now we got to see what's next. So when you came on back in like March and April, the world had just been shut down. You're in upstate New York. You had talked a lot about kind of how to run your business as a real estate agent while you had kids at home, right? Because that was at the time everybody had, because you had done that before, you had experience with that before, and at the time everybody was kind of experiencing homeschool and being a parent and an at-home parent and a worker at the same time. So what is the story with your kids in school now? Is it still like that or has it changed?
Yeah, so we decided to send them back when school reopened in September, to send them back. You could do full virtual or full face-to-face 5 days a week. And we chose the 5 days a week face-to-face. But since then, they've shut the school down twice for a couple of weeks and then reopened it again. So we're set to go back face-to-face. Right now, they're saying January 11th, they'll go back face-to-face again. And I think maybe that week before they're going to be virtual for that first week. I can't remember exactly. But so we're doing kind of going back and forth with both. Yeah.
I think it's been really similar in Texas and Northern California, and even in, where places are really strict or really not. I think a lot of places kids are back at school. They're giving people the options though. The school system is just varied a little bit. There's a lot of, that if they're there, it's masks and some separation and, slightly different experiences. But I think a lot of parents are giving, kids the choice and saying, hey, do you want to hang out with your friends or not? And most of them are choosing to go back and it'll be good for things. What have you heard? We've had a lot of talks lately about like the real estate market, and we've talked a lot about New York City and San Francisco as those places where COVID has affected more dramatically than others. Up in Ithaca, do you guys hear much about the market in New York City?
We don't hear a lot about the actual market down there, but we've had a lot of buyers throughout the year have come up from Long Island, New York City, even as far away as Boston, coming up here and buying. They really affected our little market quite a bit. So that's kind of what we've experienced in terms of, what we're seeing from New York City.
Yeah, that's a lot of what we've talked about on the news, right? Is people leaving the cities to kind of go to the suburbs, to go to the places with just a little bit more space. Sacramento is a city in Northern California that is really just booming right now because it's so close to the Bay Area. And it's so much less expensive than the Bay Area, San Francisco. So places are leaving San Francisco, leaving the big cities of San Francisco, and just a couple hours up the road is Sacramento. So there's these certain towns that are really booming, while that they're benefiting more than others. So I could see places being a couple hour drive from New York City getting that bonus. I could see places that are a couple hour drive from LA or from San Francisco or some of those, the bigger cities where life has been changing to really start to boom. What's your real estate career been like this year? Right. So how has 2020 treated you?
Yeah, it was a great year. It was my best year yet. I surpassed my goal that I set, for the year. And at one point, my team leader early on in COVID came to me and she was like, do you want to change your goal? Do you want to lower your number? And I was like, nope. And then I beat it and I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been good.
How many deals was it? Because we talked goals when you were on in March, April. How many deals did you do this year?
Yeah. So I ended up doing, let's see, I had to write it down. I did 24 deals. It was just shy of 6 million in volume. So the goal was 5.
That's so awesome. Especially even just that mindset, right? Like when COVID first hit, I panicked. I was selling assets and I had a couple extra houses. I'm like, I need to sell these now before the market goes down. I got to make these changes. I thought that I really felt like the sky was falling, and there are so many people that have thrived this year. And I think that's super cool that she said, hey, do you want to make your goal lower? And you're like, no, I'm not going to adjust my goal down. I'm just going to see. And then it turned out that, what would you attribute your biggest success in 2020 to be? Or if someone said, what's the one thing that you think by doing it helped you this year?
I think just adapting, right? Like so many businesses had to adapt. I saw in the beginning, I was really impressed with restaurants that were adapting and just turning to curbside service, or just how quickly a bunch of different businesses and investors were pivoting and adapting. And I think just learning how to adapt, with all of the regulations and the COVID rules and showings and virtual, all of that just helped, I think, keep my business going when buyers came to me and sellers.
Yeah. Adapting and being ready. And you guys, so you and your husband, you also are investors. So I think when we talked last, you had several houses that were rentals. I don't remember your unit count. What was it when, back in March and April, and what is it now?
Yeah. So when we talked last time, we had 10 units that we owned, and we had an 8 unit under contract. And shortly after, I think we had our interview, we closed on that. And that has been an awesome addition to our portfolio.
There's, I think in general, so you have 18 units, and we have a large portfolio, and in general, we're more occupied than we've ever been. We're like a 99.9% occupancy rate. And we have some people not paying because of, eviction moratoriums and stuff, but our collection rates are kind of higher than they've ever been, even considering that we have some people in default. Because we're fully occupied, we're doing better. What's it been like for you?
Yeah, I agree. We have been 100% occupied since last January, which for quite a few years was not the case for us. Yep. And we are actually, all of our tenants are paying as well. We have a mix of students and young professionals. And then with this newly acquired 8 units, we have a couple Section 8 tenants mixed in there too. And for now, everybody is paying. I take that back. There's one tenant that we inherited. She's not paying her portion, but a large amount of her rent is paid by rent assistance program. So
yeah. And that's one of the things. We do have a few Section 8 people where Section 8 pays 90% of their rent, and the people have to pay 10%, and they haven't paid. We have several that haven't paid their 10%, but Section 8 evictions, I think, I don't think you can have any they have their own eviction moratorium. If it's a Section 8, property, there's no evictions allowed right now. I don't know when it was first. There was an eviction moratorium for Section 8 and, government owned loans. And then that kind of went away, and then it was replaced with the CDC eviction. And we'll get into that one with the news. maybe the Section 8 one's gone. Maybe it's just the CDC one now, but I'll have to double check that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that Section 8 one. I actually just recently called get some more information on evictions, and I didn't hear that Section 8 one, but that could, totally still exist, and I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah. I mean, I really love having Section 8 rental assistance rentals. I mean, it's even when it's just the 90% of the partial coverage, because once you get that resident in there, for the most part, they love being in the program, that, the rent comes on time, and they know if they mess it up, they kind of lose that ticket. So I've heard horror stories of people like, wrecking stuff, of Section 8 tenants being bad, but I haven't had that experience at all. Have you? You just have one Section 8 tenant?
We have 3 that we inherited with that 8 unit. And then otherwise we didn't have any previously. And 2 of the 3, are great tenants. They pay their portion on time. They keep their places immaculate. It's been really great. And they had lived at the property for quite a few years, prior to us taking it over. And as long as they want to continue to stay, we'll have them stay. But it's been a great, I'm a little more open to it now that I've experienced it, and especially in a pandemic, like you said, where most of the rent is being paid by the government.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think that Section 8 programs are going to get bigger. Some of the news from a few weeks ago was kind of one of Biden's plans of affordable housing, and really trying to push more affordable housing and putting more money into that, changing zoning laws and things like that. And if I was going to have one prediction of 2021, it would be a lot more Section 8 funds available before the end of the year.
Yeah.
A lot more Section 8 programs. And so if you are listening and you're a landlord, or you have, customers that are landlords, I would start to learn a little bit about, Section 8 and how it works. And Real Estate Rockstars. This is Aaron Muchastegui with a quick commercial break from our sponsor, RentRedi. And you've heard me talking about them lately. You heard them talking about the offers. I even interviewed Ryan Barone in episode 939. So you guys can go back and listen to that to learn more about RentRedi. But here we go. Looking to streamline your rental property finances this year, tenant management can eat up a big part of your budget. So reducing turnover and avoiding costly vacancies can save you big bucks year over year. Keep a profitable cash flow with consistently occupied units when you use RentRedi. With RentRedi, all you need is one software to see expiring leases, list units, screen tenants, e-sign leases, track renters insurance, send rent reminders, and collect rent online. RentRedi can help you manage your tenants, increase retention, and keep business costs low. As part of a special deal, RentRedi is offering our listeners a whole year of RentRedi for $1, right? That's what I'm always talking about. $1, that's right, $1, but only if you use our code. So you have to use code ROCKSTAR and sign up for RentRedi's annual plan at rentredi.com. That's RENTREDI.com. If you've got 1 house, 5 houses, or 10 houses, and you just want to check it out, I've gone and looked at it. I have a lot of rentals that we own, and we were using 5 or 6 different software technologies. One to be able to list properties, one to be able to accept money. We create the lease in a different document. We use DocuSign for other things. We got all these different sources, but RentRedi's doing it all for one. I recommend you go check it out. Let's jump into some news. Today is December 28th. That's so weird to say. December 28th, year is almost over. December 20th, 2020. I cannot wait for 2021, although the first few months of 2021 might be similar to what we've experienced. So I think everybody was hoping that by the time the ball dropped, it would be, all right, we could just say, we could put it in the rear view, but I don't think we're quite in the rear view yet. But the news of last night says Trump signs a stimulus and government spending bill into law now, averting the shutdown. So this was an article from the Washington Post, but it's all over the news everywhere this morning. The stimulus had been getting talked about a lot over the past couple of weeks, and some different things that are in the new stimulus. And so a couple of highlights of that was, I think so it's a $600 payment to people, $300 of unemployment add-ons, right? I think that's a weekly, an extra $300 a week on unemployment. At the very beginning of the pandemic, do you remember what they did at the beginning of the pandemic?
What was it? It was $500 for the add-on. It was either 5 or 6, right? Yeah,
I think you're right. I think it was either 500 or 600 at the beginning, and then it got moved to, and then it went to kind of nothing. And there was a lot of talk that there was going to be a $2,000 payment to people. in the stimulus. And so it was down to 600. Then Trump said he wasn't going to sign unless they came back with the $2,000, per household. He ended up signing last night with it still as the 600. I'm trying to find the article summary that I just saw on it. But they said now there's going to be another one, like even tomorrow, that they're going to vote on. That's an additional 2,000. But it was so $600 payments to taxpayers and dependents is what got approved. $300 a week in enhanced unemployment benefits, a 1 month extension to the CDC eviction moratorium. So that's what you and I were talking about before. So the CDC eviction moratorium is a form that says, if I get evicted, I will be homeless or have to move in with family, and it will increase my chances of getting COVID. And so they signed that, and then it would just waive all evictions. So all of our original eviction that we had posted got extended to January 3rd or January 4th. Now it says that's getting extended to January 31st. But now Congress is also scheduled to introduce legislation today to take $600 payments to $2,000. The biggest thing they added in there is $25 billion in rental assistance. Do you remember, over the past 10 years, there's been lots of different kind of stimulus and those sorts of ideas. What do you think about rental assistance, like rental stimulus? Have you looked into it much?
In the beginning, I looked into it a little bit, but I honestly haven't looked into it a lot. I haven't needed to because of my tenants paying their rent. So I don't know exactly how I feel about it personally. I mean, initially, I feel like it's good, right? Like landlords are left holding, the tenants aren't paying, landlords still have to pay their mortgage. When it all first happened and I was calling the banks to find out what kind of, what they were doing for landlords, they were basically saying, you can defer your payment. I think our bank said for 3 months. This was initially, you could defer the payment for your mortgage payment, just the mortgage payment, not your taxes. And our taxes up here are really high. So you could defer just the mortgage payment for 3 months. And then at the end of that 3 months, that entire amount you deferred was due. And then you could apply for it was like an 8 or 9 month payment plan for those. So it didn't, when I called, I was like, this doesn't sound like it would be super helpful. Nothing that I wanted to get into. So I think if we can get rent assistance, that helps the landlords that are left paying this mortgage.
I think your experience with it too is 30 million other landlords, right? So there was the eviction moratoriums protected people from not paying their rent. There were also foreclosure moratoriums, but a lot of the discrepancy in that was it had to be an FHA or Fannie Mae loan, and it had to be an owner occupied. Like if you're an investor and you don't pay your mortgage right now, that's the exception that you could actually get foreclosed on, right? So there are still some foreclosures happening. It's about, it's 1/5 of the normal number right now, but that's the exception. Private loans or ones that were investor loans. So if you have an investor loan, so small landlords are the ones that I think have struggled the most with these eviction moratoriums. I understand why you do an eviction moratorium, right? You don't want to have so many, tens of millions of people getting evicted all at the same time, especially at a time where it's, financially, they haven't been able to replace income. Now with this new stimulus, hopefully people get the people on unemployment get that little bit of extra money. And I don't know if I don't know how it's going to be taxed. I think the extra $600 payment and the extra $2,000 payment, it's kind of like a prepayment of a tax credit or something. So so it's not free money. There are some kind of caveats to it, but it says this $25 billion plan. So the National Rental Home Council is a group that I'm a part of. And they said appropriates $25 billion for implementation. They read the new act and kind of sent us a summary. And it said each state, District of Columbia, will be eligible to receive funds directly from the Secretary of the Treasury. And if it says local governments are eligible to receive funds directly from the Secretary of State if their population exceeds 200,000. Initially, each state will be eligible for $200 million regardless of its size, leaving $14.6 billion. $14.6 billion will be distributed to states in which their proportion to their share of the U.S. population. So it's kind of said of the $25 billion, $15 billion of it is just going to be spread out among states based on population. And $10 million is going to be specific to places with higher population. And then, every state's going to have, some of that. It says eligible household includes a household that contains an individual that qualifies for unemployment benefit, experienced a reduction in household income, at risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability, or at or below 80% of the area median income. So I don't know if people need to be both on unemployment. I said it qualifies for unemployment benefits. I don't know if that means they have to be unemployed or not. 80% of area median income, but it says they will be able to use the assistance for rent, rental arrears, utility and home energy costs, and other housing expenses determined by the Secretary of Treasury. So they're going to essentially get the money to local counties and local cities. And they said some localities already in April and May came up with their own rental assistance programs, and then they spent the money really quickly. So they said that those counties and cities that already have a program are going to get that money first. And so people, if you're out there listening, I would say get ahead of it, because that is a really big fund that they're trying to push into that. But if you do the quick math on, how many tens of, if there's 10 million people in default, and each of them gets is behind 3,000 in rent, I think that's I don't know if I'm doing my math right, but I mean, you're going to start spending. Yeah, it's going to get used up. 30 billion is going to go pretty fast in that. So that's going to be really interesting. So I'm glad you haven't had to look at it yet. And and we are going to start to look at it. And so, and our advice to landlords out there is to be able to get ahead of it, try to figure out what programs are going to do it. Fill it out for your residents, go show up at their house and say, hey, we've got this ready for you. We just need you to sign so we can go get your rent paid for, and we can leave you alone. So I think that's going to be a good, I think most of the people that are in default are going to get assistance. I guess the only thing that's going to be tough is for the people that are making it the median income or more. But I think their justification in that is if people are making the median income, they should be able to pay their rent. So we'll see. And then the CDC Eviction Moratorium, that's the January 31st. And it won't be extended again by this administration, I have to imagine. Do you think they'll keep extending that throughout next year?
I was actually, personally, I was surprised that it only was extended to the end of January. I thought for sure it was going to go into March.
Yeah. I think some states have taken it further already. I mean, I think California, it's end of February right now, and some different places are doing it. It was kind of like punting it. It was just a quick little punt to say, all right, so now it'll get through one administration and leave it up to the next administration to figure out what their rules will be. I think there's always going to be, I think this year there's going to be some sort of something to slow the normal process of it, whether it's a full moratorium. I mean, there are some exceptions to the moratorium that people are starting to see. We have one resident that we found out he actually owns a house too, but he's on the CDC moratorium form. But in that form, he has to sign something that says, I don't have any other properties to live in. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. If it's inaccurate, if he actually had two homes and he's not paying rent on one, so we'll see. It'll be interesting. There isn't really a specific way to go back to court and say, hey, he's in violation of that. So lots of stuff on rentals. The next article that I sent over to you that we were looking at, it's along the same line. I just wanted to touch on it really quick. It says, millions of renters are fighting to stay housed as the eviction near. And this was a Bloomberg article, and it was an opinion article from Prashant Gopal and Patrick Clark that just says, hey, they're going to give $25 billion for rent support, but it falls well short of what's needed. And it goes through kind of the story. Are you going to risk potentially dying just to pay a bill? But if you don't pay a bill, you're going to be homeless. You have to literally decide what's worse. And so that's what kind of people are facing out there. I was thinking this article had a little bit in there of, how quickly they thought that. It said Democrats and Republicans broke a months-long stalemate to pass a $900 billion pandemic relief package. Yeah, even that, which extends the federal eviction ban through January and earmarks $25 billion. It says, this is the number I want to see. Tenants owe landlords $70 billion in back rent right now.
Oh my gosh. Is that really what it is?
$70 billion in back rent, additional fees, according to estimate by Mark Zondi. So that's exactly what we were just kind of almost predicting, right? Like that'll go quick.
Yeah. Super quick. Wow.
That's a lot of billion. Like that's yeah. So, and the unfortunate part is most of those landlords aren't people that have 300 houses or 200 or 100 or even 18. Most of those landlords have one house, two houses.
Yeah, I think the little mom and pop little landlords.
Yeah, there will be some opportunity there, but it would be really tough to have one rental. So many people are just getting by themselves. They got one rental, one mortgage on it, one tenant, and that tenant isn't paying rent. And yes, if $70 billion is owed, it's too bad that especially the package itself was $900 billion. I guess I would have been happier if 70 billion of that was accumulated, because that could have, the ultimate reset is what a lot of people have pushed that could help. So I think I agree with that opinion that, hey, it falls short. It says, landlords filed more than 7,300 evictions in November, nearly quadruple the number in July. And property owners filed more than 2,600 cases last month in just Phoenix and Houston, where there are fewer, safeguards, postponing. Oh, it said in New York City, where state law protects people facing COVID-19 hardships, landlords filed 7,300 evictions in November. Wow. Quadruple what the number was from July. So in July, there was like 1,600 evictions in New York City. In November, it's 7,300. Wow. And then, less were getting filed other places. So there is a rental crisis out there. The $600 payment, the $2,000 payment. Did you see any of those articles too, that when people were like, hey, there's a $900 billion stimulus, but like 50 million is going to this other country and 10 million is going to this other country? Like there was so many of those.
I was wondering if you were going to bring that up.
Dude, how crazy was some of that? So many people were like, why are you... I wanted to write a post on it to kind of share, like, that is an example of how socialism or big government is not going to save you in the future. Yeah. Like, people have to be responsible for their own, because it's like everyone was excited. There's going to be this big relief. And then they said, okay, everyone in the US is going to get $600. But we're going to give $10 million to this country, or $20 million to this country, or this much to this other. So, and I went into research it, and some of it was kind of fake news, but a lot of it wasn't. A lot of it was like there were some examples where it said, hey, this library was going to get the money anyway from something else. So it wasn't this, but a lot of the money going to other countries was real. That's in the bill. And how'd that make you feel?
Yeah, so the headlines, I didn't really do a lot of research into it, but the headlines I was reading where it was saying, this is sneaky. I was like, agreed. Like, this is super sneaky. It goes along with making, like you were saying, like, not trusting big government, knowing they're not going to get it done for you. Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
I think everybody has a right to be upset, especially when you're getting a $600 check.
Right. They get a $600 check. And then even the example that the $25 billion for rental housing is only a third of what's actually needed. It's just that example of going out of $900 billion. There could be a lot of stuff that can get done, and just like anything. So you can't sit back and wait and count on a bailout or, things like that to save you. You gotta take control. Right. So the next few articles are contradictory. So one is saying, hey, the market is going to be so awesome in 2021. And two others are saying the market's cooling off. One, I just got an email from Listing Spark, which is a company out in Texas they do flat rate listings. So their December real estate market update says, across major markets in Texas, our December real estate market update shows clear data that we are ending the year in one of the strongest sellers markets we've ever seen in modern history. The breakdown across Austin, San Antonio, median sales prices up 19% in Austin, closed sales up 23%, average days on market is 33 days on market. And last year in December, it was 62 days on market. So now it's 33 days on market. Pending sales up 23, less than a month of inventory in the city of Austin. In the city of Dallas, 2 months of inventory, that it was 3.3 last year. San Antonio, I guess I don't see my months of inventory, but median sales price is up 13. So median sales price went up 13% in San Antonio, up 12% in Houston, 12% in Dallas, but 19% in Austin. Austin on the news has shown a lot of people moving here from kind of other cities, especially like Northern California and places like that. Yeah. Even in the neighborhood we bought in, like, every house in the neighborhood is like, we bought the day that Texas got shut down. And I was like, what have I done? Why did I buy a new house? And then later it was like, okay, the market's actually, but now all the houses in this neighborhood are worth at least 20% more. Like, the cheapest one on the market is 20% more than mine. And you go, that's crazy. What's it like up in Ithaca?
Yeah. So I was just looking at our New York State Association of Realtors website at their stats and pulled up our November stats, and it's been great. Everything's increased. Closed sales. Let me see here. I wrote it all down. Let's see. In November here in Ithaca, closed sales was up 14%. In all of New York State, it was up 21%. The median sale price in New York State went up 21%. Inventory, the month supply, that's lower. Same for it with Ithaca and all of New York State. So yeah, similar.
Did you say 1 month supply up there too?
What do we have? Let me see here. I have the percentage. It's down 26% for all of New York State. I don't have
that's crazy. As a state, that's crazy too, because that's averaging in some of the markets. Yeah. They're saying, they say only New York and San Francisco and a couple other cities actually have, more houses on the market right now than they had a year ago. So, if you're looking at it statewide and still getting that's impressive. So the 3 different articles. So an Inman article that came out the day before Christmas says, a super hot market. Economists weigh in on what to expect in 2021. A handful of economists shared with Inman their forecast on home sales. It says the housing market will enter 2021 blazing hot with off the charts demand and extreme shortage of homes on the sales. On home prices and sales, we're going to see start of the year in a super hot market. So that was the CEO of housing market analytics firm Atlas Research. Inventory has plunged to just under. So he's saying inventory's down, demand is still up. That was Altos data. One of the other people in there said, it says, he added, going to keep falling now through February as fresh new inventory comes on. We'll probably have a resumption of more normal market second quarter of 2021. Danielle Hale, chief economist at Realtor.com, expects home sales to continue growing, jumping 7% in 21, and prices to continue rising to new highs, though maybe not, she says, at a slower pace than 2020. So she's saying the market's still going to go up. Daryl Fairweather, chief economist at Redfin, also predicted a strong year for home sales, even stronger in 2020. She anticipates low double-digit home sales growth, close to 10%. So a lot of people are saying, that it's going to be super strong. And so that's what everybody said on that Inman article. Then I've got 2 articles on Realtor.com, and one came out on December 23rd, just day before, and it says new home sales fall as buyers begin to get cold feet in an expensive market. And that was December 23rd. A week prior, it said new home sales are booming. So specifically sales of newly built homes occurred at a seasonally adjusted rate of 841,000, 11% below the pace from October. And so their headline was, people are getting cold feet because now it's getting expensive. And I have seen that new home sales, every time they release a phase of like 7 to 10 houses, they raise the prices, and 7 to 10 houses and they raise the price. And then another Realtor.com article the day before that says existing home sales, so these are resales, one person selling to another, fall in November as buyers struggle to find properties to purchase. So we've got one saying super hot, super demand, and then we've got others saying, hey, we are seeing some slowdown in November and December from the new home sales market, and buyers are getting discouraged because there isn't enough property because it's tough to find the property they want. When you think about both those sides, I know we've only got a couple more minutes, but what are your predictions with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the market here in our area is going to open up soon. I mean, it has slowed down a little bit, but I feel like 2021 is going to be another strong market. I don't disagree that buyers are getting discouraged. Right now, the buyers that I have are, there's really not a lot out there. There's less than normal. This is our slow market. There's even less out there for them to choose from right now than usual. So I agree that they're getting frustrated, but I think it's going to be 2021 is going to be another great market. I think it's going to be a seller's market. Yep. But yeah, I think we're going to continue to see a strong market.
Yeah. I think interest rates are going to stay low. I mean, they said 6 months ago that they were going to keep them locked in for the next 3 years. And I don't see that really changing anytime soon until we see a bunch of economic jobs and, big boom and come back for that middle class sector, for the service industry, for some of the people in the finance industry. Some of those sectors have almost no unemployment right now. And so they're booming and they're getting all these low interest rates. The people at the more, affordable end, lower income stuff, there hasn't been a lot of job replacement in that. So I think they'll keep interest rates low because of that. And I think you're right. I think supply will stay supply will stay low because there's nothing that's all of a sudden going to put a bunch of houses on the market.
Yeah.
You know, nothing's going to change that. There isn't going to, like, home builders are building. That's the only way supply is added, and they won't be able to build at that pace that works. And not everybody wants to live in a new home community. So as they add on, specifics, most of the time new homes are built kind of in outskirts in these spread out markets. And so there's going to be some places where there's nothing that's going to bring on extra supply. And I think they're going to keep rates low where people can qualify. So I think you're right. I think at least the first few months of the year, we're going to continue to see a seller's market. We're going to continue to see prices be tight. Although I won't be surprised if we start to see months of inventory go up because it takes longer to find the right house. Every time we list a house on the market, we get multiple offers right away on it for the most part, as long as it's like an average house. So every time that happens, there's 10 buyers and there's 9 people that are disappointed in one that gets the house. And
I know.
I don't even know if they're excited. If you're the highest bid out of 10 offers, are you like, yes, we did it? Or are you like, man, I just paid too much for something? How are your people feeling?
If my people are the ones that lost out, I give them that talk, like, well, did they really win though? Or, but if it's my buyer that won, I'm like, we won, we did it. You did a great job. You put together a great offer. So it just depends on which end of that my client landed on. But yeah, it was crazy for those buyers with, like you said, 10 offers. I did notice though, as crazy as the market was with all of the multiple offers that were going on in our area, that if you put your house on too high, people were smart enough that they weren't just grabbing things that were wickedly overpriced. It had to come on in a good range, and then it would multiple offers would drive the price up. But if you came on too high, people weren't going to jump on it just to buy a house. It was interesting.
That's a great point. So the market's been hot, but not if somebody, said, hey, almost like the Zillow used to have a make me move, where it'd be like, your house is worth 200. And they're like, but if you give me 300, I'll move. So if people were doing that, then they're not seeing it. So last question, with that, what would be the one because you're both a listing agent and a buyer's agent, what would be the one piece of advice you would give somebody to get their offer accepted? If the people are like, we love this home, we want this home, it's not just price, any extra advice you would give them?
Yeah. I mean, you have to get creative, and it's especially with the first time home buyers, really coaching them on how to get creative. So we'll remove contingencies that they're comfortable removing. I really try to get as much information and really push the listing agent from on the buyer side, to find out kind of what what they're looking for. Cause like you said, they're not all looking for price. It could be that they just want to move fast. Maybe they want a 30-day here in New York. It takes us at least 60 days to close. But with an all cash offer, you can usually push that up to 30. So do they want a fast closing? Removing contingencies, really just working with your agent to work hard instead of just writing an offer and throwing it in, figuring out how you can put together a really strong offer, aside from the price.
Yeah. Removing contingency ahead of time, or doing an inspection ahead of time, and just saying hey, we're not going to do it. I think that goes a long way, because that is the one thing you don't want. You don't want to have 10 offers, accept one, and then have that buyer cancel a week or two later, because then you're like, man, I've had that happen a few times in the last 6 months and been like, I chose the wrong buyer. Even though it seemed like it was easy. Well, Kelly, thanks for coming on. We're out of time, but this has been a really fun state of the market. Any last thoughts you want to tell people as we're finishing up 2020?
Yeah, I think just prepare. Like you said, what did I say? I saw one meme that was go into 2021 quiet with our prepared but quiet mouths. I can't remember. I'm totally messing it up, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting as we, set high goals. We'll go into 2021 like we did 2020 and hope for the best.
Yeah. I think everyone should go into 2021 setting really high goals. I'm going to adjust them. I'm going to COVID adjust them based on my goals used to be, hey, we were going to go to like 3 new countries in the year and we were going to travel. So we've had to do certain things where we have to so we could think about like the way the world is now and adjust those things a little bit. The funniest thing is the only goal I didn't accomplish this year that was on my list. I had 2 travel goals, but one specifically that I really blew it was I didn't read the number of books that I told myself to. And I'm like, what excuse did I have in 2020 to not read enough books? Like, and I didn't even have that high of a bar. It was like read 10 and I usually do. And I did, of all years to not hit my reading goal, I blew it in 2020. So Kelly, thanks for coming on. We'll definitely have you on again to chat news with me.
Aaron.
And Real Estate Rockstars, thank you for listening. All right, Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Muchastegui jumping in again to thank you for listening to the show. Hopefully you guys loved listening to that one. And I want to make sure that you know about all of the extra resources that we have. And also we need your help. They say podcasts are free. You get to listen to podcasts for free. But what is the cost of that podcast? I would say if I could beg you to pay anything for that podcast, I would say the cost of the podcast is going and giving a review. So whether you download it on Google or Apple or YouTube or anywhere else, please go give us a review. Say what you liked, what you didn't like. It helps us get better guests. The more reviews, the higher we get in the rankings. Right now, we are the biggest podcast out there for real estate agents, and we want to keep that spot because we know there's lots of podcasts out there. So go give us a review. Also, be sure to go to hibandigital.com. If you liked any of the resources that those real estate agents talked about, we've got a huge video vault of those resources for free. Every penny that comes on the podcast that we interview, they give us something that helps them get their deals or helps them work with their clients. And we put that in the toolbox in our vault for you. So go to hibandigital.com and you can get it. If you're looking for real estate education, go to rebusuniversity.com. We have all sorts of courses in there to help agents succeed in real estate, how to get the listing, how to negotiate deals, how to become an investor, all sorts of different stuff, rebusuniversity.com. And if you want to chat with me, go find me on Instagram. And if you come find me on Instagram, you can send me messages. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. We try to put a bunch of content out there too. You can find me in 2 different places. It's at rerockstars.com for our Real Estate Rockstars page, or at aaronmuchastegui.com for my personal Instagram page, where I can chat with you about all sorts of different things. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.